There are 120 legislators in California's capital. It only takes 2 legislators in Sacramento to call directly for a blue ribbon panel investigation into any topic. It also only takes 1 state senator and 1 member of the assembly to call for a joint resolution, which would call for a blue ribbon panel investigation in the text of the resolution. The moment that the California government just begins to put forward the idea of an investigation into California sovereignty, it will be news across California automatically. Now it will take an additional 7 legislators to back up the direct call for a blue ribbon panel or a resolution that calls for a blue ribbon panel before it can officially become law that the panel will convene. But again, that is out of 120 total legislators. The day the California government officially calls for a blue ribbon panel investigation into California sovereignty, it will become global news instantly and news across America. California is a large state in America, and it is also the 4th largest economy in the world. The world will take notice. Here is the interesting part. The panel has not even started. No election has been called for California separation. No has even mentioned the idea of a vote for independence. All that has happened is that a tiny fraction of the California government have called for a boring, run-of-the-mill, average government function to happen. And yet, it will cause a news firestorm across all of the majority of states that voted for Donald Trump twice. And it will be global news. That is how powerful the idea of a blue ribbon panel on California sovereignty is. It could take about 2 weeks for the blue ribbon panel to be proposed by 2 legislators and another month and a half for the panel to become officially approved. It would take another month to 2 months to convene the panel. In about 3 months, you could go from idea to the panel, holding hearings in Sacramento on how would California do if it was separate from America. Now, the panel will take 5 to 8 months to finish its investigation or more, perhaps up to a year. But California does not have to wait for that long. It does not have to wait for the panel to finish or to even get halfway or a quarter of the way. Something big is going to happen the moment the panel starts, on that first day. And it will be another gigantic change to the California mind. Because the California government has officially started to investigate the idea of California sovereignty, the average Californian and all of the voters will also automatically start discussing the idea themselves. Recent polling from the YouGov polling agency suggests about 58% of Californians are interested in some form of sovereignty from the United States of America. This makes sense, since multiple polls by polling agencies, Reuters, Ipsos, and Stanford University's Little Hoover Institute showed around 47.5% of Californians were not opposed to discussing full independence from America in 2017, only a few years ago into the past. There is a giant appetite for the idea of CalExit, and yet most Californians who have heard of the idea think it is just a fantasy because they think there is no legal way to secede from America. Most Californians do not know about the Supreme Court case called Texas versus White, which is the only Supreme Court case in all of American history to provide a path to secede. The case said you could secede fully legally and peacefully with consent of the states. It was decided by Salmon Chase, who was personally appointed by Abraham Lincoln himself. Additionally, most Californians don't know about Erwin Chemerinsky, the top professor of constitutional law in California, who said that a simple majority vote of Congress could be all that is needed for California to legally and peacefully secede. Most Californians don't know that if they only got 25 states, out of 31 states that voted for Trump, to vote for permission for California to leave, that California could legally and peacefully obtain independence. Once the majority of average Californians know just these 2 facts, they will take the idea of CalExit very seriously, like they never have before. There will be a multiple-step process for the epiphany of people in California. Now to repeat, just 2 legislators out of 120 in Sacramento. Calling for the blue ribbon panel will get the attention of all Californians. Once the additional 7 legislators sign on to either the call for the panel or a resolution, it will become global news and conversation among Californians will rise to a fever pitch, where they are constantly obsessing over the idea. The day the panel convenes for its first day of work, it will cause a grand awakening among average Californians. Now, I also want to repeat that the California government has not said it thinks California could be a separate nation, or called for a vote on the idea of separating from America, or even published the results of the panel, and yet Californians will interpret the idea of the government holding hearings on this idea as saying that the concept of California existing outside of America is a very likely thing to happen in the near future. The government grants authority and legitimacy on anything it officially decides to say or do. A previously fanciful concept will become very serious among everyone. One of the first topics of the panel will be, is it even possible to legally separate from America? That will likely be discussed on day one, to establish if the panel is worth continuing its work. And the facts that the Supreme Court and the top constitutional scholar of California think it is legal will become widely public. Also at this time, the public will also learn that only last year, the Republican Party said that half of them do not view anyone in California as a fellow American, and that 67% of Republicans in that same survey showed they felt California contributed nothing of value at all to America in any capacity and was only a net negative or drain on America. The Blue Ribbon Panel cannot call for a vote for independence or even recommend California become independent. All it can do is hold a hearing with experts to shine a light on what are the facts and options for dealing with a particular issue. But that will be enough to get everyone in California to seriously discuss the idea of a Cal exit and learn that there is a peaceful way to leave, and that California easily could get the votes necessary to qualify for the legal process. And that knowledge will shock Californians to such a profound level that everything will change after that.